making sure people know that you believe in them, that you care for them, and that you have a genuine kindness in your interactions with them. And then for the people pleasers, something you got to realize is you can't control everyone's reaction to accountability.
But I'm sure going to try. I'm just putting it out there.
Right.
Welcome to the Leadwell podcast, the show where we interview mission-driven leaders doing it well. We talk to them about what they're doing and how they're doing it so that you can get what you need to lead your business and your people well. And today with me, I have Kenneth Rose. He is the president and CEO at UChicago Medicine, AdventHealth, Bowling Green, and strategic oversight at Glen Oaks. And this is a fun reconnection for Kenneth and I, or K Rose, if you will, because we were just talking, and I think it's been 16 years in Grand Rapids where we first got connected, right?
Which is scary because I'm only like 19 years old. So
You and me both, man. So I don't know how that happened, but it was a great time in preschool up there in Grand Rapids, and since then you've been all over the country. You've done a stint in Dallas. Thank you for being down here by me and with us, and now you are up in Chicago doing what we just laid up there.
yes, it's been a great career. It's funny how your career will follow all sorts of paths if you allow it. And I truly believe that your steps are ordered,
Hmm.
and I've just tried to follow those doors as God has opened them, and it's led to some cool responsibilities and opportunities.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about that. And specifically, I was kind of teeing up and asking you about leading in a place where there's high demand, kind of high expectation on performance, on the need for accountability, and yet every single one of us is leading a person, and so people are probably starting to think, right, in construction and doing electricity, there's high demand, high accountability because it can damage somebody's life. You and I, you fly on planes, I fly on planes. I want to make sure that that plane has some high accountability because I'd prefer that it gets where it's supposed to go, right? And that exists in medicine. And for a lot of us that have high mission, high compassion, high focus on people, sometimes it gets a little challenging to make sure that we keep up with the performance and the accountability. Um,
Mm.
what are some of the pieces that are unique to you as you start to look at that, and then start to guide us through kind of how medicine approaches some of that too, if you would?
Yeah, well, for me, I think the foundation that I try to lead from in every aspect is based in kindness and love.
Mm,
Um, people will allow themselves to be in a system where they are held accountable if they know it's a system that truly cares about them as a person. Does that make sense?
that
So
people will allow themselves to be in a system where there is accountability if they know that there is truly love. Yeah, that's
yes,
powerful.
yes. So that's why it's the foundation of what I do. I never aspired to be a nice guy or a nice leader, but I definitely want to be seen as and known as kind and loving to people. So that kindness sometimes comes with necessary accountability.
Hmm.
And in healthcare especially, you're absolutely right. Something that's important to us at Advent Health is we wear these monikers for our badge. I care for
Mm-hmm.
you like my I've got my wife Alyssa on there. And
Mm.
what that does is that gives you some personal accountability. If
Yeah.
I, as a frontline team member, a nurse or a tech or a physician, or a leader, truly believe that I want to care for you like someone that I love, well, then I want it to be an accountable system, right? I want
Yeah.
to make sure that we have good hand washing. I want to make sure that we do timeouts before we do procedures to make sure that we're operating on the right side of the person and everyone is locked in and ready to go. So, there's just the real basic approach to accountability and making sure that there are um, high levels of it, and that starts
Mhm.
with having that kindness and love at the foundation. And Some people get uncomfortable when you talk about love or kindness in a business setting, in a work setting. And I would just say there is no other way for you to truly foster high levels of accountability and strong culture if you don't have that.
One, I'm going to find myself an AdventHealth partner hospital health system because that badge right there, I can only imagine the comfort and the trust that is immediately built with a patient when it sees I will care for you just like I do my wife Alyssa, just like I do my child. If I put one of my kiddos' names in there, William, right, whatever that might be.
Mhm.
Oh man, that hits, and you touched on culture, right? And you brought in that someone will allow themselves to be a part of this if they also know that they're going to be cared for. We talk a lot about kind of mutually agreed upon expectations, and that culture that it's not just you, Kenneth. It's not just a nurse shift supervisor that's doing this. What does that culture of accountability look like once you get people that are all bought in on that same idea? We're going to be kind. We're going to love. We opt into this level of accountability because of the work we want to do. How does that start to play itself out once that culture starts to exist?
Yeah, it's powerful when you really get all these things working together and make them very clear for people. With our team, the model that I've made for our team to help us know how our culture works, we're a people centered culture, and we're based in this foundation of our mission statement. Our mission statement at Advent Health is extending the healing ministry of Christ. That just
Mm,
grounds everything that we do. It makes it very clear who we are. And then we have three priorities that are in a very intentional order. That's care for each other, which is all about team. Then we care for our patients and their family members. And that's an intentional order because I want to make sure our team's cups are filled, they're cared for, they're loved, because then they can pour that out on the patients and their families. If you're burnt out, if your cup is empty, if you don't feel cared for, it's real hard to fake it with a patient and their family, right?
yeah,
And the last piece, our third priority, is to care for this business. So we believe in good stewardship, and that's not just reductions and cost management and expense. It's about growth. How do we
yeah,
find new ways for us to grow this business and invest wisely in what we've been given? So we've got those three priorities, and then across to the three are our four service standards for Advent Health. Those four service standards are: love me, keep me safe, make it easy, and own it. So,
mm,
in all three of those priorities, there's an opportunity to love, there's an
yeah,
opportunity to own it, to not just be a renter, but an owner. There's an
mhm,
opportunity to keep someone safe, whether that be a team member or a patient, our business, our investment, keep it safe. And, making it easy is something that, again, translates to all three of those pillars. We want to make it
mhm,
easy for our team members to come and work and do a great job. We want to make it easy for our patients to access the healthcare they need and to get the help that they need. So those are the bones of the structure, and then the
mhm,
vision, the pointy top of it, is that we want to be transformative to people, and what that means within Advent Health is that we will be holistic, we will
mhm,
be viable, affordable, exceptional, um, and when you put all of those things, and we'll be connected is the fifth. When you put all those things together, it describes what transformation looks like.
yeah,
Because when you've got a holistic experience, which is a big part of who we are as Advent Health, body, mind, and spirit, that's something that I think everyone needs in the world today. Is they need a holistic approach to healthcare. We don't want to
yeah,
just be an acute care provider when you're in crisis, but how do we help prevent some of the crisis? And then a lot of physical issues actually stem from mental and spiritual issues.
yeah,
We don't force people to take that from us, but we gladly offer it if they'd like it.
yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely. It is amazing how interconnected the entire kind of well-being experiences to all of those facets. And I mean, my experience, probably like most, is that we, the general population, your patients, come to you in some form of crisis, whether it be like my little one who face planted on the driveway the other day going over his bike. He's fine, all is well now, right? Woohoo. And like you get us at a place of vulnerability, of crisis. And I've been around so many healthcare providers that they care so deeply. So I'm kind of pulling us back to this. We care for each other. uh, we, your patients in the general population, are good at always needing you.
Hmm.
And at some point, those people are going to run dry on the cup. So I'm kind of, I know I'm going a little operational here, but how do you work that out and walk that out in an industry with a mission where we could all justify just never shutting it off, kind of going, 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 going. So how do you all practically kind of care for each other and make sure that there is an intentional refilling?
Yeah, that's great. Great question. There's a number of different initiatives and things that we do, and I'll just share a few that I think are most impactful. One of the key things that I love about our hospital is that the leaders that we have in the department that we call mission and ministry, which are traditional chaplains.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, they are focused on our patients and caring for them. But we also employ them to take great care of our team members. And so there's a number of different initiatives that this mission and ministry department has come up with. Things like what we call Soul Cafe, which is a cart that they push around, and it has chocolates, and it has herbal teas, and it has, I think, a neck massager, and anyone can order the Soul Cafe cart, and basically it goes to the unit if someone is having a hard day or they're going through something personally. Their team members can know that and can reach out to mission ministry and say, hey, can we get the Soul Cafe cart for this team member? And in those moments too, John, what's beautiful is then the mission and ministry leader has an opportunity to see if that team member wants to open up about what's going on, to talk through it, to have a safe, confidential space where they can unpack some
Hmm.
of those challenges that they're going through. They can get prayer if they'd like to have it. And so that's one of the most fundamental ways, and I think most impactful, that we care. And then when you talk about some of the operational things that sit within our traditional HR department,
Hmm.
it's a lot of little things. Making sure our benefits are staying up to date with what our team needs, things like paternity leave and benefits from day one. So when you start with us, you've got all of the benefits. You don't wait for a 90-day period. Making sure that we're doing everything we can to help you advance your education if you want to, and help you grow in your career. We have a team member engagement survey that we do twice a year, once in the spring,
Hmm.
once in the fall, and that's a pulse check. That's
Hmm.
tell us honestly how you're feeling. Is the organization going in the direction that you're comfortable with? And then in between those two surveys, we do action plans where it's one or two things. Every leader sits with their team and says, "Okay, here's what we said in the survey as a team, how engaged we are. What's one thing that we want to keep doing because we feel like we're really moving in the right place? And then what's one opportunity for us to improve and make you feel like this is an engaging place to be?" And that gives us actionable, intentional movement in the right direction. And
Hmm.
it's not perfect. There's varying levels of expertise with our leaders at how they do those action plans and follow up on them. Excuse me, but it's a very clear system that we want to know how our team members are feeling. We want to be intentional about following up on that to make sure that we're improving.
That is awesome. We just had a guest on, Corey Shear, who wrote the book Closing the Trust Gap. And one of the things he talked about, and trust, not and as well, I mean, care for team members and nurturing that culture. He said one of those critical actions is routine feedback combined with action based on what we heard. And that is what I just heard you say inside of that engagement survey and how powerful that is. So Sometimes when we hear the word love and we hear the word accountability, uh, I might have a tendency to let you slide, right? And
Mm,
grace is 100% a 100% needed and good thing. And there's probably opportunities and needs inside of the business where those aren't there, right? And I know for myself, the love for the work, the love for the people, and honestly, love for somebody else reaching their full potential means that sometimes love also has a boundary and an endpoint, an accountability, kind of a piece where this is what we need to rise to. Otherwise, I'm just going to really be kind as we move in a different direction.
mm.
How does that kind of love, culture of kindness, and accountability to the mission, to each other, to your patients, how does that start to play itself out when things might not be going as best as we would hope?
Yeah, exactly. I think that that's a important nuance and point, and I think it may be a Brene Brown quote, but clarity is kindness,
Yeah.
and like you talked about earlier, the clarity of expectations. So, how does that go hand in hand with grace? Is I will be very clear with the expectations of what each person is expected to do, and then depending on, I mean, there's different degrees of it, right? Depending on what type of a mistake is made, there's room for grace. So everyone's gonna make some sort of a mistake, and that's where that grace comes in, I believe. When the first time that you make a
Hmm.
mistake, or as you're learning, as you're developing, it's a gentle correction. Remember, the expectation is this, and
Hmm.
in this situation, you miss the expectation. This is where we want you to be, where we need you to be. Now, when it comes to a second and third time, if it becomes habitual, then that's where it's a different conversation, right? That's where I care for you enough that I need to give you this direct feedback
Hmm.
on how I need you to improve, and making sure people understand why. So,
Yeah.
there's so many narratives and rumors and things that organizations just naturally will create.
Yeah.
And if we as leaders are not very clear about the why behind some of the things that we do or decisions that we make or expectations that we have, I mean, every organization has them. Well, they just want me to do this for them to get a bonus, or they just want me to do this so they don't have to do it. Or you got to be really clear with people about why those expectations are what they are, and then just holding people to that. So yeah, it's a mixture of the grace, but caring enough
Mhm.
to people to not only be clear but care enough to confront. I think that's
Yeah.
that's one that's missed at times is, and I think that's in the nice culture, is what you're describing of. Well,
Mhm.
I'm sure they meant to do the right thing, and but actually that means that you don't care about them enough to confront them and let them know
Yeah.
that they're outside of the expectation right now. I want to help you get lined up with the expectation of what we need.
Yeah. You are coaching me and speaking language that I have coached myself into over the last decade because I am a recovering people pleaser. That is
Mm,
100% the thing. I've had to really learn a lot of the language like you're using, right? Being clear is being kind, and doing that. So, uh, what I also know is that there are people out there like me that are probably like, I don't know that I can do this, K Rose. Like, you're calm, you're collected, you're cool, you got this right here. But I'm gonna walk into that room and be like, all right, so that thing that happened last week, like, okay, and then they leave, right? And we never actually get to the thing, and it's not
right.
quite clear. And then we got our friends that are over there that they may be more of what we would describe as a hammer looking for nails, and sometimes thumbs get in the way. We forget to pull that thumb, and they're going to strike hard, right?
Yeah.
So you have a temperament about you, you got a tone about you got this focus about you. Help some of us that are trying to walk that straight and narrow in. How am I really clear and kind? What are some of the things that you think about, or the ways that you approach some of this delivery to make sure the message is understood really clearly, but we leave there knowing that even if we've just had a spat, I care for you, I'm still on your side, I'm still here, but this is where it's going to leave at the level of expectation. guide us through a little bit of your process there, and how you make sure you do that.
Yeah, I tell you, part of this starts so early on, right? So, something that I implemented years ago, based on a coaching that I got from an organizational development department in the past, was viewing people like bank accounts.
Mm,
And it sounds strange, but hang with me. So for every, you know, withdrawal that you need to make from your bank account, you've got to make sure that you have deposits. And if you have no deposits, but you're only making withdrawals, you've overdrawn drawn your account, and that's going to become a real problem.
mhm,
For people that struggle with kind confrontation, what I would tell them is with a team that you're working with or that you're leading that you need to hold accountable, you need to make sure that you're starting with a lot of deposits.
mm,
What are deposits? Deposits are catching people doing things really well and giving them that specific positive feedback. Hey, when you took that patient exactly where they needed to go instead of giving them step directions, that was perfect. That was awesome.
mm,
That's what we believe in here. Thanks for doing that. Something that I put into practice with deposits is, um, for all of my direct reports, the top of our agenda every time we meet is give me someone to recognize for doing great work. Give me somebody
mm,
who deserves kudos. And what I do when I get that name is I write them a note and have it mailed to their home. If it's the second or third time, then I'll call them. I'll pick up the phone and call them, or I'll walk and I'll find them and recognize them. And so little things like that start to permeate and create a culture that then, when you need to have conversations about expectations and accountability, well, that's not the first conversation that we've had. The first couple of conversations we had were building you up and cheering you on about the
mhm,
great work that you do. And since I know that you're capable of that, and since I've seen you do great work, I'm sure that this was just a misunderstanding of you getting out of alignment with the expectations. So I want to make sure
mm,
you're aware this is where we need to be in the work that we're doing, and making sure people know that you believe in them, that you care for them, and that you have a genuine kindness in your interactions with them. And then for the people pleasers, something you got to realize is you can't control everyone's reaction to accountability.
but I'm sure gonna try. I'm just putting it out there.
Right. And there will be some people that you'll have a great conversation. You will have made deposits. You have done everything right, and they won't be able to handle that accountability. And that is not anything that you need to worry about or
Mm,
take on yourself. Some people will struggle with it. And
mhm.
as long as you've been true to yourself and you've gone through the right steps as best as possible, the rest will fall in place.
What a good encouragement, and I'm just going back to, even on your positive feedback, it was not just that, "Hey, at a girl, at a boy." You gave very specific, constructive, positive feedback. "Hey, you took an 8-step thing and you whittled it down and made it really easy for a team member, for a patient, for whatever." That is a very specific, reinforcing, positive thing that, if anyone else caught that, they grabbed it. If not, we want to highlight that that's an amazing thing to turn in there. Before I ask you my last question, which is, what does it mean for you to lead well? Any
Mhm.
last things that you have for us on this topic of kind, loving, clear expectations, and how we live that out in high stakes, high demand areas?
Yeah, I think that something I learned a couple of years back, John. I actually, over the past couple of years, I've had a challenging personal and professional journey.
Hmm.
It starting back in 2016, we moved to Texas, my wife and I, and we didn't have any kids, and we were getting started. I was my first executive role, and that was a challenge. When you're your first time executive and trying to figure out what that
Hmm.
means and how you fit on a new team. And then we started having kids in 2018. And what was a challenge in 2018 is in April, we found out that my wife was pregnant and told my parents and told her parents, and everyone was excited. And then in May of 2018, actually, lost my dad,
Mm.
collapsed of a massive heart attack, and died on the spot. He was 55. We were weeks past telling him he was going to be a grandfather for the first time, and so that affects your personal and your professional side. You're one person. You're a whole person. You can't really separate the two and leave them apart. And then I got the opportunity to be the CEO of opening and building a new hospital, and that came with challenges. We opened 2 weeks before the second COVID spike,
Mm.
uh, so we were a brand new hospital and dealing with COVID and ups and downs, and then on top of that, we had some financial struggles. We lost 24 million our first year, and we were only
Wow.
supposed to lose about 13. So obviously, that puts a lot of professional stress on you as a
Yeah.
leader, as a CEO.
Yeah.
And we eventually our team pulled together and rallied, and even though went through some difficult things in that situation, we came out on the other end. We were blessed in a lot of ways through that situation. I could definitely see God's hand in it when it really shouldn't have worked, and it did. Um, but amongst that time too, going back to the personal, my wife and I experienced a miscarriage,
Mm.
which was a really challenging personal thing as well. And we moved houses among that time. We had all three of our kids in that time. It was a lot happening, and what that season taught me, this long story, what that taught me was, as leaders, for us to lead well, we have to be balanced, whole people. I'm notorious for wanting to be very accountable and working hard to get the results that are needed, whatever it takes. And the wall that I hit about 2 years ago was just burnout,
Mm.
of shouldering all of the responsibility, trying to get it all done on my own. And I went through an experience with an opportunity to fast and pray. And one of the things that came out of that was just this idea that I was living with a lot of pride and ego. And it's a slippery slope, right? That pride and
Mhm.
ego was, um, hey, I'll figure this out. I'll do the work. I'll be here. I'll get it done. It's just going to take drive. It's going to take grit. And while that is true, it was a lot about what I'm going to do, all the things that I'll get done, all the effort that I'll put in. And when I surrendered a lot of that in my personal walk with God, and brought Him into it, and committed a lot of this to prayer, and I realized that I didn't have to figure it all out. I also realized that I needed to have a better balance to my personal and professional life. It's not bad to take time off of work. It's not bad to leave work early to get home to your kids and swim or go to the park, because you need that. I wasn't bringing my best self to work because I was
Mm.
unbalanced. And
Yeah.
so I would say that's a great thing to keep in mind, is leading well is leading yourself well first.
Wow. Every single one of us, myself included, going back and just listening to that piece, because there's a whole lot of depth and a whole lot of learning inside of there. And um, one of the things I found personally is when we go through really challenging experiences, we either get bitter or we get better. We
Mm.
kind of move away from people, or we have a different level of empathy. And I hear the latter in all of what you just shared with us, and teeing us up that as leaders to lead well, we have to start leading ourselves, and we have to look at this as a balanced, holistic approach. Kenneth, it was amazing, my friend. I am so glad that we got back together and that you carved out the time to come talk with me and share your story, as well as how you lead, where you lead with everybody else. Thank you for doing that.
Happy to. I'm just honored that you asked and allowed me to get on here and ramble a little bit. I had a great time.
Good, good. And for everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in. Be well, lead on, and God bless.